Morning, everyone. So I'll just wait a few minutes for a few more people to join. But this session is about managing a sales function using Nomisma. Nomisma, well, the Nomisma side, sorry, is slightly shorter, but it is a very important aspect of this session. But the main focus of today is about generating leads, monitoring where they're coming from, and uh, the importance of managing those leads correctly. So we'll just wait for a minute for a few more people to join, and then we'll get started. But I really do hope you find this session useful, and any questions along the way, feel free to ask them. This will also be recorded, and we will share this recording afterwards on YouTube. Now, in terms of the recorded version, if you have any questions, put them in the comments and we'll get back to you. Okay, well, let's get started. So, as I said, today's session is all about managing a sales function using Nomisma. Now, the key to any sales function and the key to any high-performing sales team is all about leads. So on the day-to-day basis, where do those leads that they're calling come from? Now, those leads could come from cold calling, which is not so popular nowadays because it's a high effort, low reward process. And it's mainly an older way of doing it because it's a scattergun approach. You would normally have to have the lead in the first place to even make a call to that lead. For example, people have been known to call through the yellow pages and call every single business, regardless if they want the service or not, and just inquire to see who deals with the finance department and do you need help with accounting? So it's very cold. It's not a warm approach. Now, networking is great. There's the digital, the social media side of networking, and then there's the physical, where you can actually go to events and you can speak to people about your expertise. Now, I like both aspects of networking, especially if you're doing local networking with local businesses and you are in smaller groups, because chances are you may build business relationships, you can help each other, and then that's where your services can come in handy. That will also help for referrals, which we touch on later. But then also the digital side of networking, many people get this wrong from my perspective, and this is just my personal opinion. But when it comes to social networking, most people think it's all about posting content regularly about your industry, about what your services are. Now, the mistake I personally think that makes is that you're not attracting the right audience by doing that. What you're actually doing by posting about accounting is attracting other accountants and other bookkeepers to like your posts, and because it relates to them. Now, if you want to reach your audience, you have to put some work into it. So what you can do on LinkedIn, for example, is search for people by job title or search for people by industry. And that will allow you to identify the people that you actually want to network with, you actually want to communicate with, and who you want to work with. So are you specializing, or not necessarily specializing, but do you want to work with builders? Do you want to work with people in the IT industry? Do you want to work with CRM consultants? Do you want to work with landscapers? You name it, you will be able to find it on LinkedIn. Connect with those individuals and then like their content and comment on their content, and just not be too salesy, but network with them. And if anyone does ask any accounting related questions, give a tip away for free, because chances are that person will see it and they'll be grateful for it. They may even inquire to see, find out more about your services because their accountant hasn't given them that advice or that tip. And their network will also see that comment because their post is public. And as a result, it's open to their own network to be able to see it. So that brings us on to public speaking. Now, in terms of public speaking, it's not for everyone. I personally, I'm not great at speaking in public, but you can see what I'm doing now. This is also a form of public speaking. I'm speaking to an audience without anyone able to come back and speak back at me. But this could be a Zoom session. This could be at a local event, or it could be on a grander stage, say an Accountex or similar event for a different industry. But public speaking really gets you in front of an audience where you are the expert, and that can be great. It doesn't necessarily result in direct leads, but it will get your brand and you as a person out there. So it will increase your brand awareness. Now, the next one I've got here is writing. Now, when it comes to writing, most people think blog posts. From my perspective, blog posts are great. However, from an SEO perspective, it's actually a long-term strategy. Chances are, if you wrote a blog post and you didn't or haven't been putting much effort into your website, it will take you years to get ranked on Google. And even after many years, you may not be ranked highly, because from a search engine perspective, they go by many different factors. The algorithm always changes, but the two are age, reputation, and how many backlinks you have, which also affects your reputation. So if you have many different websites referencing your blog post and giving a link back to your blog post, then that can boost the ranking. But that requires a lot of work and a lot of effort, because you would have to write the blog post, then you have to contact 10, 20, 30 different websites to say, hey, I've wrote this amazing blog. Would you mind featuring it in a blog on your website and giving me a link back to my website? So as you can imagine, that could be a lot of wasted effort, because 20, 30 websites may turn you down. But if you are running out of different ways of generating leads and you want more, then it could be a good one. But my preference when it comes to writing, especially for small businesses, is to write for local magazines, write content for not necessarily local, but also other magazines that are industry specific to the target audience that you're targeting. So it all, for me, comes down to who you're trying to speak to and what message you're trying to give them. Because then you can write content that speaks to them, and then you can write call to actions that they would take action on. Referrals is pretty self-explanatory, but it's essentially setting up a scheme where you may pay someone £100 for sending you a lead, or giving you a testimonial, or sending someone your way. And then finally, we've got paid ads. So this, for me, is great if you have a huge budget. However, if you haven't, then I wouldn't recommend this route. Purely because in my example, or the most recent example that I've had, it costs, well, it varies based on industry, but accounting is very expensive because it's extremely competitive. But for me, the cost per lead was about £200, and that isn't a paying customer. So you may need to convert or generate 5 leads in order to get 1 paying customer. So that could be £1,000 per paying customer. But it's great if you do have the budget, because it can increase the rate of growth. Okay, so once you generate those leads, how do they engage with you? Do they walk in to your office? Do they give you a phone call? Do they submit a website form, send you an email, or engage via a live chat on your website? for me, this is not critical, but it's important to know where your leads are coming from, because if you have all 5 of those set up, but a certain route isn't working for you, there may be a bottleneck. There may be a problem with that route. For example, a website form, there may be a bug. It may not be submitting properly. Your phone may not be working. If you haven't had a call in 7 days, try calling the phone number yourself to make sure it is actually working. Emails, are they bouncing? Is your email working? So for me, it's really important just to monitor where these leads are coming from, to identify any bottlenecks and make sure that everything's operating smoothly. Okay, so lead generated, what next? Now, this is the point where I would also say analyzing your user journey, mapping it out is really important, because from the point of generating your lead, how you're generating it, you have to look at it as a pipeline. So from the point of generating the lead, them submitting something or getting in touch with you, then once they've got in touch with you, how many times do you chase them in order to generate a quote, a contract? And then once you've generated that contract, how many times does it take to chase them to sign it and then go through an onboarding process? So having that user journey and mapping that out clearly, you will be able to identify where people drop off in that journey. So if you have 500 leads, where do people drop off? And if there's a lot of people dropping off at the point where you send them a quote, what's wrong with that quote? Why aren't you converting those leads at the point of the quote? Is it because someone's more cheaper? Is it because your quote wasn't good enough? Is it because you weren't offering the service that they wanted? It's just really important to keep on top of that. Okay, but this is where Nomisma comes in. So, lead generated. It's all well and good generating your leads, but if you're not storing them in a system, how are you following up? How are you keeping track of them? How are you keeping track of all of the individual fields of what we've just discussed? So a CRM of some kind, for me, is one of the most important aspects of any sales function. And it allows you to store their email address, their phone number, their key lead information here. So we could update the email address, enter a phone number. And then that will just allow you to keep track of your entire lead database. So at any point, you could send them an email. You could go through and just reignite a bit of interest and call them all. These are warm leads because they've engaged with you in some way, shape, or form. You've got their lead source. We've got this down as search engine optimization, but it would be whatever lead source they came through. But being able to nurture your leads is really important, because there is a stat that it takes on average between 5 and 7 times of trying to contact someone to actually contact them, because they may not know your phone number, they may not recognize the call. So leave a voicemail, send them an email, and call them between 5 and 7 times. Once they actually say, no, sorry, I'm not interested, that's when you can then mark them as not interested and no longer call them. But at least you have that answer, which is definitive. But originally they inquired, so they must have had some interest. So all the time there is a possibility, you should try and contact them. I know it feels unnatural as accountants and bookkeepers. I've been there, but you should do it, because you're the only person you're harming is yourself, because you don't know that they don't want your service. And the reality is you're helping them. You're trying to help them. You're not annoying them. You're genuinely trying to help them with your services, because these business owners need your help. Okay. And within Nomisma as well, you can then generate a quote from this point. And Nomisma has an entire user journey built into it so that you can manage your leads, generate your quote, generate your letter of engagement, send that, and then go through an onboarding process. It's all built into the Nomisma platform. If you want to have a demo of that, please do get in touch with us and we can sort that out for you. However, one thing that I really want to show you as well is web forms. So on the accountant setup side, you can actually come to this web forms section here, where you'll be able to see a form that I've already created, but you can create a web form and then select the fields that you want to add on that web form. And then once you've done that, you can save that and it will generate a HTML code for you, which you can then add to your website, any page on your website. And whoever submits this form, it will then store the lead information within the Nomisma CRM automatically for you. So this is one of your channels in my presentation where it said web form. So this can be your web form. And let me just see if I can get an example for you. Here you go. So ignore the style of it on the right-hand side. You would be able to change that, whoever manages your website, or if you manage it yourself, you can customize it to suit your website. But this is just a test landing page, which could be for a promotion. And all I'm going to do here is enter some lead information. Company name Nomisma, and then submit. Thank you. Great. So that's submitted successfully. And now when I go to leads, we've got that lead here. We've got the telephone number, we've got the email address, and we've got everything we needed. The description there, I'd like help with a self-assessment. So now from that point, you would then be able to call them, email them, have a conversation with them, invite them in for a meeting, whatever your process is. The sooner you get a quote to them, the better. But once you have the information you need to generate a quote, you can click create a quote and go through this process. So we may need their address. And then I'll just enter a lead owner as well. Contract owner. And then okay, so we've got several packages built into the system. This is an individual, so I'm just going to go for self-assessment. And then you would be able to select the type of self-assessment that they need. And all of this is backed by pricing drivers, which will, so all of the answers to each of these questions will affect the price. So from my perspective, my process would be, I'm on the phone to the lead, great, fantastic. Let me just go on my system and select create a quote. Go through this, ask them, oh, just so I can go ahead, can I get your address? Sorry, just so I can produce a quote and a contract for you if you want to go ahead with the quote. Can I just get your address? Okay, great, thank you. Type that in. Okay, so you're looking for a self-assessment? Yep, correct. Fantastic. In terms of your self-assessment, what type of income do you have? Is it dividend and wages, nil return, low income? You can explain what these are, but based on their answers, yep, I've got dividend and wages, fantastic. Okay, you disposed of a house, fantastic. Yep, you've got capital gain. Okay, you've got cryptocurrency income, fantastic. So that's everything. You didn't have any rental property, you didn't have this, you didn't have that. Okay, you did have rental property, great. How many of those rental properties did you have? 4. Okay, Fantastic, fantastic. And is it just a self-assessment for yourself, or do we need to do a self-assessment for anyone else? Okay, just yourself. Fantastic. So based on that information, the system that I use has just come back with a quote of £300. Is that something you would like to go ahead with? Okay, great, great. So you just want to shop around? Okay, no problem. I mean, the quote that I've given you here is based on a system that is used by thousands of accountants up and down the country. So it's backed by a well-priced system. But let me tell you what I can do. I can give you a 10% discount if you like. How does that sound if you go ahead today? Yeah? Okay, you'd like to go ahead. Fantastic. Let's get this set up then. So I'll get a quote sent out for you right now. You should receive that via email address, via email. And it will be the email address that you provided me on the website submission. Okay, just to confirm, is that facebook@nomisma.co.uk? It is fantastic. Okay, great. So I'm just going to send you this now. If you just be able to stay on the phone for me, and then just confirm that you've received that, that would be fantastic. So at this point, you could then send that, confirm that they've received it, and they could approve it over the phone, which would be great. In which case, you could then send a contract to them, and we could go to summary. Okay, great. You want to approve that. So based on that, the payment method that we use is direct debit. Could I just take your account number and sort code for the bank that you'd like to pay us via? And then once that's done, you can generate the contract. If they need an SA1 form, you can add that to the contract at this point. So we can generate and review the contract. And then you can just mention to them as well, right, I've generated the contract. I'm going to send this to you for e-signature. So you'll receive another email that says, I'm requesting you to e-sign a document. And then once they select that, they would get your contract, which looks just like this, with all of their information in, and they would be able to e-sign that there and then. So within a matter of minutes, 10 minutes, you've got the lead into your system, you've generated a quote, they've accepted the quote, you've sent them a contract, they've signed the contract, and then at the point it's signed, so they would sign it their end, but I'm just going to go ahead and mark as signed. It would then go into an onboarding workflow. So at this point, that's where you can say, right, thank you, client. It's with me now. I'll get you up and running. I'll get you onboarded. If I need anything, I'll be in touch. But as you can see, there's an entire system built for accountants, and you can follow this from lead all the way through to an active paying client. Now, that's it for today's session. I hope you found this useful. If you do have any questions or queries, sorry, I haven't been able to take any over the Facebook Live, but just put them in the comments or put them in the YouTube comments and we'll get back to you and we'll answer all of the responses. I hope you found this useful. Any questions, please do get in touch. Thank you. Bye.